his ears and forehead. He wore yellowish-brown nankeen trousers that were nearly new, the creases still faintly visible in the heavy cloth. He had earlier removed his brown sack coat, his vest, and his tie, but even in the breeze made by the Dohertys' slow forward progress, his white linen shirt was spotted with sweat and hung limply on him. The blond nap of a 2-day-old beard glistened with moisture. Occasionally he rubbed his face with a soiled handkerchief as if the stubble irritated his skin. As they neared town, the road leveled and the wagon went forward more rapidly, swaying gently from side to side, so that the young man was able to relax his grasp on the hickory pole and slump forward more easily on the hard bench. The clop of the mule's feet became steady and muffled. A cloud of dust, like yellow smoke, rose about the wagon and billowed behind it. Above the rattle of harness, the mules' heavy breathing, the clop of their hooves, and the uneven creaking of the wagon, could be heard now and then the distant shout of a human voice and the nickering of a horse. Along the side of the road, bare patches appeared in the long level of prairie grass. Here and there the charred, crossed logs of an abandoned campfire were visible. A few hobbled horses grazed on the short yellow grass and raised their heads sharply, their ears pitched forward at the sound of the wagon passing. A voice rose in anger. Someone laughed. A horse snorted and neighed, and a bridle jingled at a sudden movement. The faint odor of manure was locked in the hot air. Butcher's Crossing could be taken in almost at a glance. A group of 6 rough-frame buildings was bisected by a narrow dirt street. There was a scattering of tents beyond the buildings on either side. The wagon passed first on its left a loosely erected tent of army drab with rolled-up sides, which held from the roof flap a flat board crudely lettered in red, "Joe Long, Barber." On the opposite side of the road was a low building, almost square, windowless, with a flap of canvas for a door. Across the bare front boards of this building were the more carefully executed letters in black, "Bradley Dry Goods." In front of the next building, a long, rectangular structure of 2 stories, the Doherty stopped. From within this building came a low, continuous murmur of voices, and there could be heard the regular clink of glass on glass. The front was shaded by a long overhang of roof, but there was discernible in the shadow over the entranceway an ornately lettered sign in red with black edging which said, "Jackson's Saloon." Upon a long bench in front of this place sat several men lethargically staring at the wagon as it came to a halt. The young passenger began to gather from the seat beside him the clothing he had doffed earlier in the heat of the day. He put on his hat and his coat, and stuffed the vest and cravat into a carpet-bag upon which he had been resting his feet. He lifted the carpet-bag over the sideboard into the street, and with the same motion lifted a leg over the boards and stepped onto the hanging iron plate, which let him descend to the ground. When his boot struck the earth, a round puff of dust flew up, surrounding his foot. It settled on the new black leather and on the bottom of his trouser leg, making their colors nearly the same. He picked up his bag and walked under the projecting roof into the shade. Behind him the driver's curses mingled with the clank of iron and the jingling of harness chain as he detached the rear doubletree from the wagon. The driver called plaintively, "Some of you men give me a hand with this freight." The young man who had gotten off the wagon stood on the rough board sidewalk, watching the driver struggle with the reins that had tangled with the harness trace. 2 of the men who had been sitting on the bench got up, brushed past him, and went slowly into the street. They contemplated the rope that secured the freight and began unhurriedly to tug at the knots. With a final jerk, the driver managed to unsnarl the reins. He led the mules in a long diagonal across the street toward the livery stable, a low, open building with a split-log roof supported by unpeeled upright logs. After the driver led his team into the stable, another stillness came upon this.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.